Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to this early morning, middle of the night bonus. Before we jump into it, a quick couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And with that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? I guess we'll start off. We'll save the best for last. Dogman. No, I'm just teasing. This is an experience that I have heard a couple of different times in a couple of different areas. I've always thought that this experience actually happened outside of Los Angeles, but apparently I was wrong. And I will share the experience, and then I will share a old newspaper clipping or article that I found from back in 1934. And they were actually talking about reptilian creatures in the news. Do you think they would do anything like that now? Besides what the Daily Planet or whatever it's called, you know, the one that everybody looks down on. No, they wouldn't. So the city of Las Vegas and well-known Las Vegas Strip, with its glittering casinos as well as communities of North Las Vegas and Henderson, fills this crowded desert Nevada valley. Black Mountain looms over the desert community of Henderson, situated on the eastern slopes of the valley. The Dark Mountain is the home of many television towers and other towers on the top. It is the home of mines and caves that pick the sides of Black Mountain. Today there are businesses and homes and a freeway that cuts into the slopes of the mountain, but in the middle of the 70s, just open desert from the middle of town to the mountain. More open, undisturbed miles of desert until sparkling Las Vegas. With the building boom, homes and businesses crowd the once open desert. In 1977, every kid in town knew the rules. Do not climb or play on that mountain. All parents understood the constant danger of the deep open mines and caves, but danger lured the younger set, and several deaths occurred on the slopes of the Black Mountain. It was a pleasant day, and my 13-year-old son Mark and his friend Harry roamed in the empty desert between my home and the forbidden Black Mountain. Being adventurous boys, the chance to explore a cave and carry back a rock or two and a lifetime of memories is enough to break the rules. They hiked maybe the scant 1 mile across the desert and climbed the little hills in front of the Black Mountain. On the back side of one of these little hills, Mark and Harry located a cave. They had to squirm into this narrow opening and belly crawl through the cave to a larger room and turn on their small pocket flashlights. They saw a circular room, roughly 9 feet across. Near the back wall, they spotted a large, deeper hole. They found several large branches that someone had dragged a couple of large branches about a mile from the closest tree and tossed these branches into the hole creating a makeshift ladder to climb down into the lower pit. The pit was roomy with a short annex. Occasional debris littered the rocky floor, like a tin can or two. A battered teen magazine perched on a small outcrop of rocks that served as a shelf. The boys explored the main cave, then turned their attention to the short tunnel or annex. Sounds carried in the cave, and the walls slightly vibrated if a loud voice reverberates throughout the small room. It was then that the boys heard the sounds of voices and maybe the distant humming of machines. Intrigued by the thought of mining nearby, the boys went deeper into the tunnel. On the far end, they found a rusty metal door, and near the door a strange metal rod. The 1-foot rod was lightweight and resembled aluminum, with a cap on one end and a few strange engravings on one side. Mark weaved the rod into his belt loops of his jeans, focused the beam of his flashlight onto the door, and tried the doorknob. He discovered a strong bolt secured the door from the reverse side. Harry shook the doorknob and pounded on it a few times. Startled, the boys heard the sound of guttural, harsh voices talking and the certain sound of approaching footsteps. They suddenly felt a wave of fear, knowing that they were inside a forbidden cave, weaponless, and an angry, animalistic, growling voice attempted to open the door any second. Mark, the taller of the two, pushed Harry up the makeshift ladder and scrambled up the wood branch to the upper level of the cave. They heard the metal door clank and squeak loudly as the door opened. The boys crawled as quickly through this narrow tunnel and outside. They stood up and ran about the distance of a city block away and turned to the cave entrance. They laughed at their dirty hands and faces. Revealed the escaped from the unknown man with harsh voices in the cave. They looked at the strangely engraved rod, trying to figure out what language might include circles, ovals, swirls, and triangles. Without warning, they heard a loud, threatening growl. Harry and Mark looked back at the cave entrance, and to their horrified eyes they watched as a very large, greenish humanoid struggled to force his large body out of the narrow cave. The boys screamed and started running down the slope of the hill, running at top speed. They did not look back until they were near my backyard. They slowed down, breathing hard, and glanced back at the mountain. To their shock and fear, the large humanoid was trotting towards them. They started screaming again, put on a burst of speed, and ran into the house. Mark locked the door, screaming, "Mom, help us, Mom. He's going to get us." Alarmed, I ran into the family room, and both boys threw their arms around me, crying. They both were shaking, not just their hands, but also their entire body shook. Wet tears left muddy tracks across their faces. Mark begged, "Don't open the door, Mom. He's going to get us." Meanwhile, Harry added, "He's large. He looks mean. Don't open the door. Please, don't open the door." Instantly, I was furious with this man that had generated such terror in these young boys. At 13, boys are usually trying to impress everyone at how brave they can be, so I know it took a lot of nerve for them to admit that much fear. "Boys, go and get a drink and let me talk to this man," I suggested, but they tightened their grip on me, screaming, No, that guy will kill you. He's not a man. Don't go out there, Mom." I managed to coax one arm free from each boy. I looked into their worried eyes. "Boys, nobody's going to kill anybody. And, I won't allow anyone to hurt you now." "What do you mean he's not a man? It's a woman that's threatening you?" "No, Mom, it's not a man, sort of. He looks like a man, but his face looks like a snake like a lizard man. He's ugly, and he doesn't wear anything. He's naked except for a wide belt with stuff on it." I stared at my son, imagining some teenager wearing a Halloween costume. I laughed a little and said, "Boys, it was just someone playing a joke on you." Both boys started to protest again, both talking at the same time. I could hear the panic in their voices rising again. And finally, Harry said, "That guy couldn't have been wearing a costume. He could barely squeeze himself out of the cave. He would have ripped his costume into pieces." "What cave? Did you boys go to the Black Mountain, even though you knew it was dangerous?" I asked. "Mom, listen to me. It was a lizard man, and he was naked. I never saw a costume that shows everything. He was naked, Mom. It was not a costume. You know what I mean, Mom." With difficulty, I untangled myself from the tight grip of the boys and looked out the window. I peered carefully out the window, expecting the spectacle of this lizard man, but nothing moved, not a child, not a man, not a lizard man. I reassured the boys the danger was in the past and this man was long gone. It was at that point I noticed Mark was holding a strange metal rod. "What do you have in your hands?" Mark glanced at the rod and threw it on the floor as if it was going to burn his hand. I leaned to pick it up, but Harry grabbed my arm, warning it was dangerous, maybe a weapon. I picked it up, reminding them they carried it from the mountain safely all the time, so it couldn't be too dangerous. The rod was approximately 1.5 inches across, maybe a foot long, with a slight indentation at one end and a plain gray cap at the other. I looked at the bizarre symbols engraved in a 3-inch section of the rod. It was just symbols with spirals, circles, and different sizes, and a few triangles, and a few unknown symbols. There were no levers or buttons, and the cap at the end did not seem to move. The rod, with its professionally created symbols and smooth to the touch, I knew it was not a toy, but nothing I recognized. It was late afternoon, and the long shadows cast ominous shapes into our yard. I knew Harry was still too nervous to walk home alone. Mark and I walked the distance of the 2 houses, made sure he was safe inside of his home before we walked home. That night, Mark was still nervous, peeking out of the curtains, often expecting the worst. Mark played Scrabble with his sisters, everything to keep his mind busy. Near midnight, we went to bed. It must have been around 2 a.m. when Mark shook me, whispering harshly that someone was trying to get through his bedroom window. I hoped it was just a nightmare or his nerves were still on edge. Quietly, we slipped into the bedroom and I listened to the sounds of scraping at the window's edge. He was not mistaken. In the light of the moon, I could make out a silhouette of the head and shoulders of a man. I was alone with my 4 kids, no husband to protect us, so I grabbed my flashlight and suddenly tossed the curtains open to face this man. There was a glare from the flashlight in the window, but past that glare I could clearly see a large head with ridges on the top, other ridges on his cheekbone, and his eyes glowed a golden color. Mark and I stood still, unmoving. Both fear and shock kept us frozen. The lizard man didn't move either. His hand was still poised in an attempt to pry open the window. His hand was large, with no webbed, rough, gnarly-looking fingers, with powerful claws. A couple of minutes, not seconds, but long, agonizing minutes, with our hearts pounding, I knew I had to do something. One hand still holding the flashlight beam in his face, and my eyes still locked into those golden eyes. I fumbled around in the dark with my other hand, hoping to find something to use as a weapon. He glanced at my hand, looked back into my eyes. He turned his head a little, as if he was asking a question. He slightly opened his lipless lips, displaying 4 of his pointed teeth and he turned and suddenly ran off into the desert. Mark suddenly closed the curtains, grabbing my hand, and led my shaking legs to the edge of his bed, where we sat for a few silent minutes, just sitting there trying to comprehend this incredible event with little success. We started talking at the same time and started to check the doors and windows repeatedly. His sisters were completely awake by now, and we all talked all night, going from window to door until full sunlight. Later in the morning, we decided the reason the lizard man was breaking into houses was to reclaim the metallic rod. Mark and I hiked back to the cave and placed the strange rod beside the cave entrance. The lizard man never attempted to enter the house, and for that I am relieved. After a few days, I went outside and looked at the window. It was then that I found the bottom edge of the window was close to 6 feet from the ground. I was in shock to realize that this lizard man must have been very tall, over 7 feet. Inside, the windows are high, but above 5 feet high, and from outside there is no way no one could look through that window unless they were extremely tall. This event truly did happen. Harry is not a real name, but since I have been unable to locate him and ask his permission, I used a pseudonym. Mark is a real name, and he is my only son. Mark died in 1999. I still live within the site of the Black Mountain. People living close to the mountain sometimes report underground rumbling at night when it is quiet. UFOs are often seen and photographed over Black Mountain. That shouldn't be too surprising. We live not far from Area 51, Nevada. So, gosh, probably eight years ago was the first time I ever heard that experience. And it wasn't told through the mom's eyes. It was actually kind of a second or third person telling or whatnot. And I did not know that one of the teens passed away. He was 22, he was 13 then, so 35 years old. Now, I had always thought that this was just outside of LA, and prior to like the big booming housing, build back in like the 80s, 90s and such in the surrounding area of California or LA. But everything is very similar to the one experience that I heard, minus like them seeing it. And I always thought there were two of these creatures. I never heard that just one, and it being that large. And I want to say that I believe this one more because that it just has that second person view, the mom's view, and or first party view, because she was there at the very tail end. So one of the old kind of articles that I read when I had heard that experience, now thinking about it, talked about a city under Los Angeles, a city laid in gold under modern day LA, and controlled by Reptilian. And supposedly these Reptilian were an alien species. And when I say that, I don't mean from outer space, could be interdimensional, or is it alien to us because we are the surface dwellers? Who knows? Now, maybe that's why I always thought that event happened outside of LA. But the information I'm going to share with you right now is some of it comes from a 1934 Los Angeles Times news article. So this is not part of the article. The Hopi Indians of northern Arizona have traditions that recall a time when their snake brothers built and occupied underground cities in Arizona, California, Mexico, and Central America. One such underworld city is believed to have been built on the west coast near the Pacific Ocean under Los Angeles, California. Strangely enough, one engineer's search for LA's mythical underground city gained enough credibility to have his efforts presented as front page news in the Los Angeles Times newspaper, January 29th, 1934. Top dead center of the front page is an artistic rendition of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Below the image is the article. Lizard People's Catacomb City Hunted. Engineer sinks shaft under Fort Moore Hill to find a maze of tunnels and priceless treasures of legendary inhabitants. Now, this is that article right here. Lizard People's Catacomb City Hunted. Engineer sinks shaft under Fort Moore Hill to find maze of tunnels and priceless treasures of legendary inhabitants. By Jean Basquet, January 29th, 1934, LA Times. Busy Los Angeles, although little realizing it in the hustle and bustle of modern existence, stands above a lost city of catacombs filled with an incalculable treasure and imperishable records of a race of humans further advanced intellectually than the highest type of present-day people. In the belief of G. Warren Schufeld, geophysicist, mining engineer, now engaged in an attempt to wrest from the lost city deep in the earth below Fort Moore Hill the secrets of the lizard people of legendary fame in the medicine lodges of the American Native, or of the American Indian / Native American. So firmly does Schufelt and the little staff of assistants believe that the maze of catacombs and priceless golden tablets are to be found beneath downtown LA, that the engineer and his aides have already driven a shaft 250 feet into the ground. The mouth of the shaft being on the old Banning property on North Hill Street overlooking Sunset Boulevard, Spring Street, and North Broadway. And so convinced is the engineer of an infallibility of radio X-ray perfected by him for detecting the presence of minerals and tunnels below the surface of the ground, an apparatus with which he says he has traced a pattern of catacombs and vaults forming the lost city, that he plans to continue sending his shaft downward until he has reached the depth of 1,000 feet before discontinuing the operations. Legend supplies clue. Schufelt learned of the legend of the lizard people after his radio X-ray had led him hither and yon, over an area extending from the public library on West 5th to the Southwest Museum on the Museum Drive at the foot of Mount Washington. This is the conversation. I knew I was over a pattern of tunnels, the engineer explained, yesterday, and I had mapped out the course of tunnels, the position of large rooms scattered along the tunnel route, as well as the position of deposits of gold, but I couldn't understand the meaning of it all. Then Schufelt was taken to a little Chief Greenleaf of the Medicine Lodge of the Hopi Native American in Arizona, whose English name was Al Macklin. The native provided the engineer with a legend which, according to both men, dovetails exactly with what Schufelt says he has found. Fire destroyed all. According to the legend, as imparted to Schufelt by Macklin, the radio X-ray has revealed the location of one of 3 lost cities on the Pacific Ocean. The local one having having been dug by the lizard person after the great catastrophe, which occurred about 5,000 years ago. One local having been dug by the lizard people. Okay. This legendary catastrophe was in the form of a huge tongue of fire, which came out of the southwest, destroying all in its path, the path being several hundred miles wide. The city underground has dug as its means of escaping future fires. The lost city, dug with powerful chemicals by the lizard people instead of pick and shovel, was drained into the ocean where its tunnels began, according to legend. The tide passing daily in and out of this lower tunnel portals and forcing air into the upper tunnels, providing ventilation and cleansed and sanitation for lower levels. The legend states, large rooms in the domes of the hills above the city of labyrinths housed 1,000 families. In the manner of tall buildings and imperishable food supplies of herb variety were stored in catacombs to provide substance for these lizard folk for a great length of time as the next fire swept over the earth. City laid out like lizard. Lizard people, the legends has it, regard the lizard as a symbol of long life. Their city is laid out like a lizard, according to the legend. Its tail to the southwest, far below the 5th and Hope Street. Its head to the northwest at Lookout and Marta Streets. The city's key room is situated directly under South Broadway, near 2nd Street, according to Shufelt and legend. This key room is the directory to all parts of the city and all record tablets. The legend states all records were being kept on golden tablets 4 feet long and 14 inches wide. One of these tablets of gold having been the symbol of life to legendary lizard people, will be found in the record history of the Mayans, and on one particular tablet, the southwest corner of which will be missing, is found record of origin of the human. Tablets photographed. Shufelt states that he has taken X-ray photos of 37 such tablets, 3 of which have their southwest corners cut off. My radio X-ray pictures of these tunnels and rooms, which are surface voids, or subsurface voids, and golden pictures with perfect corners, sides and ends, are a scientific proof of their existence, Shufelt said. However, the legendary short must remain speculative, unearthed by excavation. Macklin said legendary advice to Native Americans or American Indians was to seek the lost city in the area within the chain of hills forming the frog of horses' hooves. The contour of hills surrounding this region forms such a design. Sustaining Schufelt's findings, he said Shufelt radio device consists chiefly of cylindrical glass case inside which a plumlet attached to a copper wire held by the engineer sways continually, pointing his asserts toward minerals or tunnels below the surface, the ground, and then resolves when over mineral or swings of prolongation of the tunnel when above the excavation. He has used the instrument extensively in mining fields, he states. So that, I had a hard time seeing the newsprint. I will take a picture of these so you guys can see these as well. I think it's important that you guys see the news article since we are talking about it. And, you know, it only makes sense that we should, or everyone should see these things, because, I mean, this is a national newsprint at one time. It still is. But to talk about a lizard race of people in the LA Times is unheard of. All right, so right now I'm going to share the news article so you guys can see that and see the map of the city that Schoenfeld and McKinley believe is under modern day Los Angeles. So here's that, and then we'll jump into some other things. Now, the next bit of information I want to share with you is some information that I came across that had been published back in 1996 in an article in a magazine called Frontier Magazine. And the title is The Rise of the Watchers. And I just think that with everything that we talk about, it fits. So, first and foremost, I'm sharing information. All right. I'm not saying with 100% that I believe without a shadow of a doubt this information, nor am I sharing it to be blasphemous at all. Just kind of for those people that will freak out if I, say something and they'll think I mean it, just, you know what I mean. All right. The Watchers, biblical angelic figures, are once again carved out of reputation. Their popularity is so much on the rise that some UFO researchers have actually argued that they may be the people abducting people. Whether or not the return of the Sumerian gods is factual or merely mythical, their popularity continues to rise. The Watchers, they first appear on the scene in Sumer, it seems, meaning Samaria. It seems literally means the land of the Watchers. For the American author Zechariah Sitchin, they are alien beings whose specific task is to orbit the Earth, monitoring events on Earth. For Sitchin, the Watchers are not a race or a species. They are merely a job speculation. Their colleagues had abandoned their ships and had landed on Earth. They continue to orbit the Earth. Those who did land either mated or genetically engineered mankind into present form. As a consequence, mankind worshipped the Watchers as God. Carl Sagan once remarked that we still have no clear perspective about the origins of the Sumerian culture. Their language is foreign. It shows no resemblance to Indo-European, Semitic, or any other language. We can only map them by the actions of their successors, the Akkadians, who created a voluminous Sumerian Akkadian dictionary. The Chaldans referred to the Watchers as Ir or Egyptians, Neter means watcher, and the Watchers are also in the Bible, where in Genesis 6:1-4, they are listed as sons of God who fell to the earth, for earthly women, descended from heaven, chose women, and had children. They were described as giants. Through their height of their fathers is never stated. Still, the giant did not sleep or spoke. Bible refers to the Watchers or Grigori as evil. They were the ones who fell from heaven and who were weak to the flesh of women. In this respect, they sit within the tradition of Lucifer, the leader of the fallen angels who came to earth. Could the leader of the Watchers and the biblical Lucifer be the same one? The Quran has a similar story, though the strict good versus evil of the Bible has been toned down. Two angels, Harut and Marut, watch the actions of mankind and note that mankind seems to be unable to escape temptation and sin. The angels' negative comments are heard by God, who states that the two angels should not speak of mankind in such a manner. If the angels were placed in an identical situation, their behavior would be the same. Harut and Marut consider this to be an invitation from God to be sent to earth. God demands that they do not fall for the gravest of sins, murder, worship, and the wrong deities, alcohol, and unlawful relationships, but the angels have just arrived and immediately fall in love with earth's beauty. When a passerby sees their adventures, they kill them, so that no one will be able to report their sin. But God's eyes is everywhere, and God makes sure their colleagues in heaven and the other Watchers also get to see their crimes. So, the two angels, being unsuccessful in their task, were then hung upside down in a watering hole at Babylon, a punishment they preferred over hell, thus leading other Watchers to agree with God about his point of view of the difficulties of being human. Now, where the things start to fit in right here is many other people, myself included, think that possibly the Draco are demonic. The Grey are demonic. And the Nordic are angelic. Portals, gateways to hell, alternate dimensions and such. The Nephilim, the giants, continue to live in Earth. It seems that their biggest contribution to Earth was the creation of chaos. Most ancient civilizations had a major fascination with order versus chaos, good versus evil. Evil would create chaos, and thus the Nephilim, the sons of the fallen angels, obviously displayed their father's faults. Excuse me. Thus leading God to create the flood, and then that would be the parallel to Harut and Marut. Still, Jewish history suggests that not all Nephilim perished. The Jews stated that they lived in Israel, and the Anakim and Raphim, both tribes considered to have been descendants of the Nephilim. There remained a few Nephilim who fought in some battles, but they slowly seemed to disappear from the scene. Perhaps they married, and their specific characteristics, their 6 toes, 6 fingers, eventually disappeared in a larger genetic pool. Now, the story of the Watchers then fell in disrespect within the Catholic religion, who wanted to portray heaven as good and perfect, whereas the Watchers were all too human. It seemed to neatly fit within this deception. The Book of Enoch provides great detail about these Watchers, which is not included in the Bible. Its substitute was the Apocalypse of John, where there is no reference to Watchers mating with human women. Still, some references remained. Daniel 4:13 and Daniel 17 and 23. They appear, even making an appearance in front of the king. The Watchers back with a vengeance. Sitchin had prepared the way, and others are now jumping onto the wagon, in which UFO researcher Raymond Fowler made a major contribution. In '79, Fowler had been researching a case of an alleged UFO abductee, Betty Anderson Luca, a deeply religious American who claims she had been abducted by alien beings. Fowler concluded that Anderson's story was legitimate. She had not confounded this account to create attention and controversy. So then, this is where things got interesting. So he's talking about this woman who was abducted. And let me find this one bit of information. All right, so then they talk about, in Fowler's book, created some interest. He identifies the Book of Enoch, noted that there were both angels and demons, both at the gateways of heaven and hell, mimicking the Egyptian Neters, who also guard the gates of heaven and hell in the Egyptian afterlife. Where is that one piece that just... Hang on one second. Here it is. Little realized that Fowler himself was unaware of this passage, but it was not obvious that the little gray aliens seemed to be witnessed in ancient times, where they have been described as the guardians of hell, and not as extraterrestrial beings. So these aliens are not extraterrestrial, but guardians of hell, which it really does make a heck of a lot of sense, because now at least we can associate, where these things came from, why they are here, what is really what. And the Sumerians knew what was going on, and I think that's a big reason why there is so little information about what went on. I think that, obviously, as I pray every day, I pray to Jesus Christ our Savior, but churches back then were, warring, the Crusades and this and that. So, you can't go against that. You've got to say these aliens are, not aliens, they're demons. But it makes a lot more sense than just where'd they come from. These portals are probably gateways to hell or multiple hells, multiple realms of hells. Definitely, I don't know. It just makes a lot of sense. And then right here, she described a group of blonde human-like beings that were in control of the gray beings. She named these blonde people the elders. So this one woman was never aware of any of this, describes all of her experiences, and then unbelievable. All right, so wanted to share that with you because it really does just compile everything together. Now I want to talk about the Cott County, Tennessee, Newport, Tennessee, Jimtown Road. So, Jimtown Road is in Newport, Tennessee, Cott County, Tennessee. And on the corner of Jimtown Road and Carnation Way was two terrible attacks. Just horrific attacks, both leading to the death of two different people. Tony Aarons, Amber Miller. And then there was a scapegoat. The original attack happened to Tony Aarons, and he was found by a gentleman, and they scapegoated him completely. The original caller of the 911 for Tony Aarons was Charles Owensby, African-American male with a kind of a criminal. He had some crimes under his belt. No murders, no anything like that. Just some typical, really marijuana charges, fighting, spousal abuse, and stuff like that. But no murder. And a couple had been dropped. Now, he had found Tony Aarons. He was the 911 caller. Amber Miller, 2 months later, is found. Same area, torn apart. Immediately, Charles Owensby is a scapegoat. Boom, he did it. They go to his ex-wife's house, which is 3 miles down the road in this little community. They dig up bones of dogs that have passed. No dogs have been ever... The dogs that have been taken were never pointed out as the animals that did it. They were actually released to their owner. Now, Jimtown Road goes kind of parallels the Pigeon River. So a subscriber had gone down there a couple years ago and saw a homeless encampment and talked to the people about these dogmen coming out of the woods and grabbing people up as they are walking, if they're on a bicycle, motorcycle, and that subscriber was on a motorcycle that day. Well, come to find out that this homeless encampment had been moved. They were using underneath the train trestles and stuff to keep dry, stay warm, whatever. Now, the homeless population, because they were, together, they feared these dogmen, but they all stuck together. So they didn't have to worry as much as a random guy on a motorcycle going down would. About a week ago, a subscriber who has been in our live stream, and many of you have talked to this person, he wants to remain anonymous right now, had gone down there. And he went to the train trestle that goes across the Pigeon River from Jimtown Road. And there's this little island that sits in the middle of Pigeon River. So he goes down and he's looking to see if there's any homeless populations or homeless encampments there. There's a couple of different people down there that did look homeless. But he's looking around and he notices this island out there and he starts staring at it. He's got some binoculars and he realizes that there's something moving on this little island. So he kind of picks up his binoculars and starts looking. And what he sees is 3 dogmen in various sizes, but one looked young. And he assumed that this may be a small pack, a mom, dad, and juvenile dogman, because of how they were acting. They were on this island where, no less or no more than a mile from where these attacks had happened. They were on this island and they were playing, running along the coast of the island towards the tips of the island. They were just, and he was watching it. Now, what he sees next is he hears a boat coming up the river. And he realizes that, hey, there's like what appears to be kind of a dock. And he's like, are these guys going to dock their boat on this island? There's 3 dogmen. And the juvenile looked very big anyway, probably could take out a human if it really had to. But the other 2, definitely. So this boat pulls in, 2 guys get off of it and start fishing. You could tell they had been, drinking, whatever, on the boat. And he's watching it and he's like, what the hell are these guys doing? Don't they see these dogmen like running on this kind of coast here? All of a sudden, one of the guys does. He notices it and they take off in their boat and they head away from the island, away from the beginning of Jimtown Road. And he's watching these dogmen and he's like, holy shit, I've got my phone. I'm going to take a camera or take a photo. And he starts and he gets it a clear shot. Like he's got his phone set. He's looking at it. Takes like 3 or 4, picks his binoculars up and starts watching. And what he sees is this boat is not going very rapidly. It's going away from this island, but not as fast as I'm sure the people in the boat would want. All of a sudden, he watches, the larger of the dogman come off of that backside of this island and jump into the water and start to kind of pull the boat, rock the boat. This dogman does eventually flip the boat and kind of lets it sit there. It swims back to this island and it disappears in the woods, which he assumes where the other 2 were hiding or whatever. So he's like, I think that these dogmen, the ones that killed Amber Miller and Tony Aarons, are residing on this little island. It would make a lot of sense because it's not far. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's not far from the original attacks. People aren't going to go to this island looking. So he gets in his vehicle and heads out. And come to find out, he gets home, looks at his photos because he's all happy. Holy shit, I got some photos. And looks at them, and there is nothing but these blurs, these blotches of nothing. There's trees,
but these blurry blotches, or what appears to be a satellite kind of elongation. You know, if you look at certain maps on the internet, it takes a minute to clear up, but then it clears up and you can see clearly. Well, that's not how his film was. And I've only seen a map like that with encounters surrounding it one time before, and I believe it was in Pennsylvania or Ohio, one of the two. This lady was having issues with the paranormal, Bigfoot, and this and that. And we were looking at her yard on Google Maps, and all her neighbors' yards are clear. I can see every single one of them except her property and the property next to hers, where she keeps having these kind of mental conversations with whatever is in the woods behind her house. But for some reason, her house never clears up on the map. It's always in this shadow. Is it a portal? I really, honestly, even then I thought, hey, holy shit, there's a portal around this lady's house. That's why it's not coming up, you know. Anyway, that's what happened to his phone. Except he just has very strange blotches of these creatures. The trees are clear in the back, just not these blotches. So, is the government aware that there are 3 dogmen almost to a homeless encampment? Who knows? But, you know, the government of Tennessee, Cott County, Tennessee, Newport, doesn't care. They would much rather have these creatures attack and kill and maim these homeless people rather than house them. That's our government.
And there you have it, folks. I hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experience and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real. These events have happened. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.